Be clear, please. And does religion matter anymore? Oh, there's your
3 minutes or less.
Tim Christensen, pastor of Faith Presbyterian Church in Sonoma. What was the question again?
Are you kidding?
No, I'm really not. I just got done with a fishing trip, and I'm exhausted and very, very happy. But I want to focus now. Tell me the question again.
Does religion matter anymore?
For me, it's a very personal question. At the age of 5 years old, I have to start this way first. This is astonishing what we're doing right now. I remember a trip that I took from a night train from Nairobi, Kenya to Mombasa. And I was shocked by how easy we talked about God on the train. We just automatically, but for some reason I just knew that God was real. I would call him holy now, and I had failed him. I was a precocious kid. I got into all kinds of trouble with the neighborhood kids. I knew I was bad. I felt it. I heard this amazing news at church. Calvary Temple, Seattle, Washington, Jack Ernst Children's Church told me about this God who sent his son to be punished in my place for my sin. At that moment, I was thunderstruck. I was shocked. And there was the moment when when I speak of this, it's like 5 minutes ago. It happened 5 minutes ago. It was 54 years ago that God flooded my heart with His just amazing love. My emotions followed what was far deeper than emotion. It was the love of God flooding me, that He loved me. I was bad enough that Christ had to die for me, loved enough that He was glad to die for me. And that has been like the rock, the foundation, the cornerstone of my life. How is that it?
You have 15 seconds. Keep going.
I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm Rob Jones. I'm a pastoral counselor here in town, and a writer and various other things. Does religion matter anymore? Yes. Oh, elaborate. This is an essay question. I have to say yes to that. But I think it's a trick question, because we immediately find ourselves needing to be intimately personal about the question in order to set the context. At the same time, it doesn't quite get at, in our culture, in our society, in our world, does religion matter anymore? So I'm always kind of like sitting on the fence on that. It's like, okay, how do you answer that question? I personally have a profound confidence in an indescribable relationship with what I call God. Does that equate to my religion? No, it doesn't. For me, religion is that wonderful big mesh net bag that carries meaning for us through our days, that carries meaning that we share together year after year after year, and that hopefully always challenges the conserving forces in our culture. I always think about religion, when you do it well and when you do it right, is being the voice of criticism sitting on the shoulder of culture, which is always trying to preserve the status quo and sort of keep things as they are and go back to yesterday. And religion is always saying, no, more. Let's be more inclusive. Let's be more generous. Let's be more radical. Let's be more simple. So I think religion is profoundly relevant and meaningful. I think we just do it really badly. So I'm hoping that's part of our conversation this evening.
Pastor of the Sonoma Valley Community Church here in town, and have for about 12 years. I've told the people in our church more than once, I don't like Christianity and I don't like most Christians. I like Jesus, and I'm attempting to be a follower of His. He invited people nearly 2,000 years ago to follow me, He said. And somehow I think that religion, on the one hand, I almost accept the Marx and Engels approach that it's the opiate of the people. But a relationship with Jesus Christ, the risen Savior, to me is very, very meaningful and very significant. And do I do that well? Fair, partly cloudy. I try. And I can identify with people who are far from perfect. I tell our own daughters, my wife is here, and we will celebrate 50 years of marriage on the 30th of May. So I'm obviously the only great-grandparent on this panel, this august panel. But I've told our girls, don't use the word perfection when it comes to people. It just doesn't work. But those of us who know that we aren't perfect, but attempting to follow Jesus Christ, do what he said to do and don't what he said to not do, that works for me. And somehow the church has tolerated me for 12 years. I'm as happy as if I had good sense.
My name is Ted Verts, and I'm the pastor of the United Methodist Church in town. I was here a number of years ago, the early 90s, and then left to, in our system, we're appointed to churches. So I went to a larger church in Bakersfield, and then was a supervising pastor for about 9 years. So I've seen churches that filled me with joy and churches that filled me with less than that. My bishop has allowed me to come back to Sonoma for a while, and that's unusual but not unheard of. I think religion matters a lot, and I think religion matters a lot for good reasons, and religion matters a lot for some bad. Our engagement as followers of Jesus means that we're in the world, and I learned from them a deep sense of mystery, awe, wonder, and mysticism. And when those things come together, it makes me glad. Religion also matters because it is often misunderstood and because it is used as a club rather than as grace. My tradition and me personally, I start with I'm fine, and that God's wish for me is that I would continue to grow into the best me that I can be. I don't live in the world where I'm a terrible sinner and deserve death. That's just not my planet. So that's, I guess, an initial sketch.
I'm going to stand up because apparently I blend in here. And also it'll make me look a little more ridiculous when I tell you that these guys use art, which is essentially about inner transformation and reorienting ourselves so that we can talk to people on the other side of issues. The other thing is that I'm an associate of an Episcopal monastery in the Hudson Valley of New York, which means that I live my life according to the rule of life that the monks live. I adapted to the real world. There are actually a lot of monastic associates around the world. This was not the question I was ready for, but to me, like all these other August gentlemen, I would say the answer is absolutely thunderously yes. And to me, one of the biggest pieces of evidence that religion matters is, look at y'all, you're all in here. I mean, this place is packed. That doesn't happen if it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter what side of this fence you're on. It clearly matters in some way. I guess my other answer to this is it matters if, in fact, there is a God, and I know some people object to the word God, but something out there, a more, as some theologians have said. If it is out there, even if it's in awe of the sense of the wonder of the universe, then to me that is a part of that encompassing thing called religion. And for me personally, I think that more has become more and more important to me because I sense it as a personal, like Tim said, I sense a personal dimension in that God that the union.
Who
when I perform poorly, he still accepts me. And when I'm not impressive, he still loves me. He fully knows me, all my flaws, all my mistakes, and he still loves me. Is that it? That's what I'm done. So now I'm fleeing to the gods of performance and impressiveness, and I'm running to this Lord who saves, the Lord who died for me, the Lord who forgives and restores and takes my weak and
Where's the hub? He's a good preacher.
That's it.
I'm going to have to pick up on something that Tim said, because my favorite philosopher in the world once said, that which is the preoccupation of your mind is the object of your devotion. And an event happened in our family many years ago now. We are the parents of 4 daughters, and coincidentally 10 grandsons and 2 granddaughters and 1 great-grandson. But as the father and mother of 4 daughters, trying to, as we best understood it, serve God, Katie, you asked about things that sort of knocked us down. We discovered that one of our daughters had been the victim of a multiple sexual assault. And quite like your father said, in a right world, things like that aren't supposed to happen, not in my backyard. Well, that became a cause for all sorts of introspection and frustration and pain. In a situation like that, there's never just one victim. Over the next weeks to months, that daughter acted out what most, and I say most as in 86% of people who are so victimized become sexually promiscuous. That wasn't our history and background, and it was happening in our home, and it was very, very unsettling. And on one occasion, we looked at each other and realized there was sharpness, there was hostility between Jan and me, which had not been our experience. And not being really very bright, but I try to compensate by being friendly, I started realizing that our daughter had come between us and her behavior. And so having come between us, therefore causing problems between my wife and me, I figured the only moral thing to do was resent her. And so I whipped up a head of resentment real quickly. And that didn't last long, because I remembered my favorite philosopher's statement, that which is the preoccupation of your mind is the object of your devotion. And I thought, I should be devoted to Jesus. I'm not. I'm devoted to this problem. And so I remember thinking, I need to get that daughter between my wife and me out of that position so that we can focus on God. I remember Jan and I talked about that, and whether she ever gets her stuff together or not, we've got to follow God. We've got to follow Jesus whether she does or not. And that was a substantial turning point for us. And we started working on our relationship with God. It was also true that about that same time I realized she had not come between Jan and me as though she'd done it maliciously. She really couldn't care less. I had put her there. And then I realized I had also put her between God and me. I had made an idol out of our daughter. And when we got to turning all that over and thinking about it, we looked at each other and realized we have got to follow Jesus. And my favorite philosopher who made that wonderful statement happens to be my wife.
This just sort of wound up in my hand, so I guess I'll talk. Occupational hazard.
I graduated with distinction. I went off to New Mexico and built furniture in a tiny town in the desert, which is a wonderful sort of, mystic prophet kind of thing to do. And slowly over time, I began to discover all the ways in which a much bigger God was on this journey with me. One that I had much less tidy understanding of, one whose compassion and healing presence were infinitely greater than what I'd grown up to believe and understand. So the very thing that created distrust and anger and betrayal in my heart with respect to church and with respect to God was also the catalyst for me it just utterly transformed my life and continues to be kind of the motive force in my ministry and my life trajectory. I am continually discovering a much larger God and a much richer journey. And I'm done.
Thank you all. I'm opening now the conversation to all of you, and I just want to say that I want to make sure I acknowledge thanking John Bachman, Rob Angus Jones, Tim Christensen, Ted Verts, Tim Arnsmeyer, and Katie Byrne. So the question I would like to open with to all of you, and then I'll bring the mic around if you raise your hand, and Walt will time you for 2 minutes, is what's on your mind about God these days?
God and make that connection. We can't get away from God. The psalmist says, I can climb the heights of the heaven or go to the depths of the sea. You are there. And I wish I could tell everyone that. It's like, okay, stop chasing God and just stop and listen and look. The space, the atoms, the very energy in this room is the God stuff that we are saturated with.
Thank you.
N-O-N-E-S. With the exiles, with the de-churched and the unchurched and those folks. What I have found matters is getting rid of the jargon and getting rid of the loaded vocabulary. And as St. Francis of Assisi always noted, preach and when necessary use words. So I find that the way to reach the exile and the nun population is through the life of compassion and actually this kind of conversation where you take out the theological language, you take out all of the structure stuff, and you get down to what does it look like to be a disciple and live a disciple's life. And I know I just threw the jargon in there for quickness.
Oh, I'm sorry. What